The administration would like to welcome you all back to school. We hope you had a safe and enjoyable summer. This year, we will be providing all student handbook information in this format rather than bringing you to the auditorium. For the entire student handbook, you can click on the link provided below. For those of you new to Century, we'd like to introduce you to our building principal, Mr. Madler, assistant principal, Mr. Murdoch, who works with students with the last names starting A through K, and Ms. Esplund, another assistant principal who works with students whose last name starts with L through Z. The building activities director is Mr. Ben Lervick, and the dean of students, who works primarily with attendance, is Mr. Mark Hager. Due to time constraints, we will be highlighting only portions of the handbook. Please remember it is your responsibility to read and understand all parts of the student handbook. The mission of Century High School is to inspire and challenge students with educational opportunities that create productive citizens by emphasizing character, honor, and success. We believe strongly in this mission, and most will agree that Century High School challenges students in a variety of ways, especially with our academic rigor. The only way for us to achieve our mission is to have students willing to put in the time and effort to become the best students that we can graduate. Help us create students with character, honor, and success. The expectations of a Century High School student can be summed up with the acronym PATS. We want students to persevere, to be actively engaged, to trust, and to find strength. You will be hearing more about this throughout your year. Roll PATS. This first section is full of general information. Please check your schedules to make sure that you have met the minimum class requirements. Freshmen would have 7 periods in their day. Sophomores and juniors would have a minimum of 6 hours, and seniors are required to have at least 5 classes. This year, we're starting the school year in a hybrid format. What that means is students with the last name A through K attend school in person on the A day. Students with the last names L through Z attend school Tuesdays and Thursdays. All students attend on C day, but that will be done synchronously from your home. For further information, click on the link CHS AB Hybrid and see schedule. All students are able to use a locker. Stop in the main office to secure a locker and your combination. Please remember, Century High School is not responsible for any articles that are lost or stolen, and because it is school property, all lockers are subject to inspection when it's deemed necessary. From time to time, the media will show up at Century High School. Please know you do not have to talk to them unless you would like to. For those of you that need prescription or non-prescription medication, please make sure your parent fills out the appropriate written authorization form, and we have it on hand at the main office. These forms are available on the district's website. All sophomores, juniors, and seniors have the honor of being inducted into National Honor Society. To do this, students must maintain a 3.5 cumulative GPA, have a minimum of 15 hours of community service, participate in at least one activity or job, exhibit outstanding character as defined in the chapter bylaws, and meet the requirements of Century High School's academic integrity policy. Century High School has an open campus, meaning students can leave on their lunch or their off period. However, freshmen do have a closed campus and are expected to stay on campus from their first class through their last class. Loitering is forbidden in the school. New this year are building hours. The building will open at 7 a.m. and it will be closed at 4 p.m. Please exit the building when you are not in class, assigned to tutorial, or have an activity. Students are allowed to park in the parking lots. Permits are $5 and required. Register your vehicle in the main office and hang the permit provided from the rearview mirror. Please remember, we are not responsible for articles lost or stolen from cars or for any vandalism that may occur. This map indicates where student parking is permitted. As you can see, the largest portion of student parking is on the west end of the building or on the left of this map, right outside the main entrance. Any part of the map indicated by red is for faculty only. All students are required to read and sign the Responsible Use of Technology policy. While we understand and acknowledge that technology is a vital part of your learning, we also require that you use it appropriately and in authorized areas of the building. An unauthorized area where technology is not allowed would be any area where there is a reasonable expectation of privacy, such as locker rooms and restrooms. Any violation of this policy would be subject to disciplinary procedures and possible confiscation of the electronic device. Cell phone use in the classroom is at the discretion of the teacher. Please follow their expectations. If a student is found in violation of the teacher expectation in the classroom, the first time this happens, the cell phone will be confiscated and turned into the attendance office. Students may pick it up at the end of the day. If this happens a second time, the cell phone is confiscated, turned into the office, and a parent is required to pick up the cell phone at the end of the day. On the third violation, the student will be required to check their phone in to the office at the beginning of the day and check it out to take it home at the end of the day. The Patriot Hub is also designated teacher tutorial time. It offers a way to improve student learning. The purpose of it is for students to be able to make up work, reassess, or complete missing work. If they need any assistance with their homework or other classwork, they can seek out teachers. They can have core content tutorial. It's a great way to build relationships with teachers, and if needed, an intervention may be required. Please check with your teacher as tutorial schedules vary among teachers and departments. Withdraw and credit loss grades. Any student withdrawing from a class prior to the end of 12 weeks of a semester will have a W recorded on their transcript, which just signals that they have withdrawn from the course. After 12 weeks, the grade will be recorded as a WF, which means it's a failure. No credit, counts as an F, and will count toward that GPA. Any class dropped within the first 10 days of the semester will not show up on the transcript. If a student loses credit in a class due to excessive absences, the grade will be recorded as an FC, a failing grade due to credit loss. No credit is awarded, it counts as an F, and will count on the student's GPA.
Good morning, Patriots. Today I will be presenting the second portion of the Student Handbook dealing with student issues. As a reminder, not all of the information in the handbook will be covered. I'll be covering some of the most common policies. You will still be responsible for adhering to all the policies in the Student Handbook. The first policy I'll be talking about is our anti-gang policy. CHS has adopted a zero-tolerance policy on gang-related behavior. Representing membership through speech, gestures, or attire is prohibited. Violations may result in confiscation of attire along with detention and/or suspension. This policy is enforced at school, on district property, and district-sponsored events. Thankfully, CHS has not had a high degree of gang activity, and we intend to keep it that way through enforcement of this policy. Our attendance incentive policy is to encourage students to be in school. We know that first and foremost, to be successful, you need to be present. All students will be required to take at least one final exam at the end of the first semester. That test will be decided sometimes toward the end of the second quarter. There are some criteria for how a student can earn their test exemption. Those will be listed on the next slides. It's important to remember that at the beginning of each semester, students are expected to take all their final exams. The final exam schedule is part of the regular school calendar and should not be viewed as vacation days. Throughout the course of the semester, a student may earn exemption from each final exam based on the following criteria. A student can have no more than 2 tardies or 2 tardies per block period. and they can have no unexcused absences. Both of these are based upon per class. Additionally, for a student to earn their test exemption, they must turn in their assignments on time, have no instances of academic dishonesty. They must participate in teacher-requested tutorial sessions. They cannot have any detention or suspensions. It also is important to note that if a student is failing a class, they will be required to take that final unless it is not possible for them to pass the class. Students who have earned their test exemption still have the option to take their final test. If they would like to take their final test, they can take it on the basis that it would only be for grade improvement. As a school and a district, we encourage students to take their final exams. Students in AP placement and honors classes may have teachers that require the final test. They will be notified of this final test the first week of the semester. The Bismarck Public Schools test exemption policy does not apply to dual credit courses. Exams for dual credit courses will follow the college expectation of a final. Detention during the hybrid schedule will occur during the school day. Students are expected to serve on the day that it is assigned. Failure to serve on that day will result in the time being doubled. As a reminder, any detention or suspension that is assigned does result in an automatic loss of all test exemptions. The following slides contain a list and description of activities that would result in detention and/or suspension at Century High School. Use, possession, or distribution of tobacco, including vaping devices, alcohol, and/or drugs will result not only in detention and/or suspension, but also a suspension from North Dakota High School Activities Association and referral to the Bismarck Police Department. Forging an excuse or an alternate admits cut slip will result in detention or suspension. Fighting another student on campus, assault, or sexual assault will not only result in an out-of-school suspension, but also referral to the Bismarck Police Department. Students are reminded and encouraged to keep their possessions secure and locked when possible, such as in a PE locker. On occasion, we do have incidents of theft. Theft of someone's property and/or vandalism to the school will result in detention, suspension, and possible referral to the Bismarck Police Department. If a student outright refuses to follow a teacher's or school official's instruction and/or regularly defies authority, they may be subject to detention or suspension. Our expectation is that our students use appropriate language and have appropriate interactions on school grounds. We expect all of our students to be respectful to one another and not harassing towards anyone. If a person is aware of an individual making a threat, they need to notify a school official immediately. Our number one priority at Century High School is student safety. As a result, Bismarck Public Schools has a zero tolerance policy for weapons in the building, on school grounds, in school vehicles, or at school-sponsored activities. This policy applies to any object that can be reasonably considered a weapon or dangerous instrument. Copies of weapons, including guns, starter pistols, and other lookalikes, are considered as weapons for the purposes of this policy. Bringing a firearm to school will require the proceedings for the expulsion of a student involved for a minimum of 1 year be initiated immediately by the principal. It's important that we make the distinction between bullying and mutual harassment. Bullying is defined as conduct that occurs in public school, on school premises, in a district-owned vehicle, or any district-sanctioned event which is so severe, pervasive, or objectively offensive that it substantially interferes with the student's educational opportunities, places the student in actual and reasonable fear or harm, places the student actual or reasonable fear of damage to the property of the student, or substantially disrupts the orderly operation of the school. If you are the victim of these actions, you should take a few steps. Number one, make sure they know you find what they are saying or doing is hurtful and to stop. Do not retaliate. Block them if the contact is electronic, and tell a school official or trusted adult so that they can support and take steps to make this unwanted behavior stop. Harassment is similar to bullying in that it is intentionally hurtful behavior. It can take many forms, including physical, verbal, intimidation, bullying, racial, cultural, sexual, and/or sexual orientation. With both instances of harassment and bullying, it's important that you let someone know so it can be addressed in the appropriate manner. When you observe bullying or harassment, in many instances, you have the power to stop it simply by not taking part and letting the offender know you and your peers don't approve of that harassing behavior. Personal appearance and styles worn at school is different than the styles you may see outside of school. We ask that you use good judgment and choose clothing that is appropriate for school. Your dress cannot be disruptive to the educational program, promote alcohol, tobacco, or drugs, or display words or pictures that are obscene, profane, or sexually suggestive. Attire that is excessively revealing is not allowed, as is attire that has messages with double meanings. Additionally, headgear other than hats are not allowed. This would include bandanas. Any property residing on the Century High School campus is subject to search and seizure. This includes lockers, book bags, clothing, purses, automobiles, or a person. Searches will not be conducted unless there's reasonable suspicion an individual or their property are harboring something not allowed in school. On occasion, the use of dogs from the police department will be used to conduct compliance checks on campus and in the building. All students will be getting their pictures taken during the first week of school. At that time, you will be issued a picture ID. It is important for you to carry your ID with you so that it becomes a habit and you have it when you need it. You will need to have your student ID with you to gain admittance to various school activities, most notably school dances. Additionally, you should have been given a laminated card with your picture and barcoding. This will be used to scan as you go through the lunch line.
The next section of the handbook presentation is on attendance and activities. Unexcused absences and tardiness. On your first unexcused absence, you'll be given a verbal warning. The second time, a written warning will be sent home, and with the third unexcused absence, 3 hours of detention will be assigned. Tardiness. You will be counted tardy if you're not in the classroom when the final bell rings, or if you're not logged on and present virtually in the classroom, and every third tardy results in 1 unexcused absence. The procedure to report any absences is to have a parent or guardian call the attendance office on the day of the absence. To obtain a class release application, or what's commonly known as a cut slip, please contact the attendance office at least 2 days prior to your known absence. Reasons for a cut slip would be for a funeral, wedding, family trip, religious observance, or any family emergency. Class releases will not be approved for students with excessive absences. Credit loss after excessive absences. When a student exceeds 10 absences in any one class, they will receive an F for a grade and earn no credit in that class. Remember, there are minimum course requirements at Century High School, and the student will need to attend that class if it is the 7th for a freshman, 6th for a sophomore or junior, or the 5th class for a senior. Medical appointments. While students are encouraged to make any medical or dental appointments outside of school hours, we understand that sometimes those appointments need to occur within the school day. When this happens, please make sure you check out at the attendance office and obtain a mental or dental excuse slip from your physician's office. Make sure that form has the doctor's office on it, including the time of the appointment, the date, when the student should return to school, and any specific time period the note covers.
Co-curricular participation guidelines and eligibility. As Century High School is a member of the North Dakota High School Activities Association, we do follow all High School Activities Association rules when it comes to eligibility when there are drug, alcohol, or tobacco violations. Anybody who is caught using any of those substances, drugs, alcohol, or tobacco, is subjected to a 6-week suspension for a first offense and an 18-week suspension for a second offense if it occurs within the same school year. And so that eligibility period begins as soon as the school notifies the student of the suspension. It is important to note it's generally better to notify the school as soon as you are aware of something. We will be notified through law enforcement if there's a violation that occurs with them. But we also do, as a school district, have mere presence. And so if you are in attendance at a function where there's illegal drug, alcohol, or tobacco usage that is taking place, and you don't remove yourself from that situation as quickly and as safely as possible, you are looked at as being just as guilty as somebody who is there and is using those substances. And so it's always important to make sure that you remove yourself from that. If pictures are taken or something else is turned in and your presence is at an event where that was taking place, you will have that 6-week suspension or that 18-week suspension if it happens during the same school year. We do also, as a school district, have an out-of-season penalty. So let's say, for example, that you have a 6-week suspension that occurs over the summer, but you don't participate in an activity until the winter, let's say basketball perhaps. Your suspension, you would have a 2-week suspension from basketball from the first eligible date of games. And so you would have to miss at least one game if your suspension had occurred over the course of the summer. Extracurricular activity behavior. We always want kids at Century High School to be involved in student sections at games. Kids who are in student sections should be demonstrating good sportsmanship and acting in an appropriate manner. They should never be using profane language or cheers, having inappropriate signs, or making inappropriate remarks to the officials or to the other team. The rule of thumb that we always ask kids to use is to always cheer for your team and never against the other team. If you can do that, you'll be good. If you can't, you run the risk of being removed from a contest. One thing that's different this year with COVID is attendance limitations at events. In order to get around this, what we have done is we have used a voucher system where rostered players on a team are given vouchers to give out to those that they see fit. Without a voucher, you will not be able to purchase a ticket and attend an event. And it's just the situation we're in this year. We're hopeful that if everybody can abide by that, we'll be back in a situation where we can have big student sections again. For those that are able to attend, the expectation is that you maintain social distancing, but if you choose not to, then you are required to wear a mask. If you are unwilling to maintain social distancing and unwilling to wear a mask while at an activity, you will be asked to leave. If you cannot comply with those requests and you're asked to leave and it continues to occur, you will face a suspension from activities. Absence for a school activity. Any kid who is participating in a high school activity, whether it's athletics, music, drama, whatever it might be, needs to be in attendance on the day of the activity for the entire length of the school day. And so if you happen to be in class in person that day, you need to be here for all class periods. You can't miss any time. If you are engaged online from a distance, you need to be present through each of your class periods through the online environment as well. If that doesn't happen, you become ineligible to participate in the activity that day. By and large, our coaches will submit a dismissal form and they will release you from class at a certain time. And so those are the times after that you are free, but before that you need to be in attendance the length of the school day. One issue that's come up with this in the past is when kids leave for lunch. Because the school does provide a lunch here, if you make the choice to leave for lunch and go home or go out to a restaurant with friends and you get into a car accident and you end up missing a class because of it, you lose your eligibility that day because you missed that class. That would go down as an excused absence, possibly if your parent calls it in, but it is still an absence and you have to be in attendance the length of the day. So Best rule of thumb I can give you is if you have an event, whether it be a concert or a game or something else, please make sure that you are sticking on campus for lunch on those days, because we don't want to lose you from a competition or an event just because you decided to go out to lunch and may have gotten into a car accident. So please stay on campus.
This is Officer Brett Anderson. This will be the Bismarck Public Schools Student Lockdown Training. The basics. The premise of option-based lockdown is to give staff and students the ability to make individualized decisions related to their safety based on the information they know about the materializing situation. The options available to staff and students fit 3 categories. First, run, putting distance between yourself and the danger. 2, hide, more than just locking the door and sitting in the corner. 3, fight. If all else fails and you are face to face with the threat, what can you do and what should you do? Students, if an adult is present, follow their directions. In the absence of an adult guidance, you will need to become the decision maker based on your circumstances at the time of the incident. More mental planning on your end. Think through what if scenarios in your head and have a rough plan established. Option 1, hide. Lock the door. Barricade or fortify. What is in your room that would be effective? Tables, chairs, desks, filing cabinets, cords, duct tape from your classroom emergency bucket. Silence and limit use of cell phone and communication with first responders. Only if you have first-hand actionable information and can safely share that with 911. Spread out around the room if you can still stay out of sight from the window or the door. Remember, prepare to take an additional steps, possibly run or fight. Option 2, run or get out. Establish rally points for your building and make them known. Listen to communication coming from the office, the BERT, Building Emergency Response Team, and first responders. When fleeing the building, do not go in a straight line. Zigzagging is key. If you encounter first responders, remember, have your hands empty and open so they know you do not have any weapons. This includes cell phones and wallets. Try to avoid waving or flailing arms as much as possible. Follow law enforcement directions exactly as ordered and without question. If leaving through the classroom door is not an option, breaking a window or jumping out of windows is an option. Option 3, fight. Remember, this is not just throwing punches. If your fortified lockdown has failed and evacuating is not an option, you and your student must strive to disarm and neutralize the threat. What is in your room that would be an effective tool? Books, office supplies, computers, flashlights on your phone, sheer numbers, and noise. Swarming and use your body weight. If the weapon is loose in your room, put a trash can over it and alert first responders as soon as possible. Communicating. Remember, stay vigilant. Always be aware of your surroundings. Look for escape routes, hiding spots, available weapons as you move through the building. Immediately report anything that appears weird or out of the ordinary. Report suspicious or threatening behavior. If something looks weird and feels weird, it probably is.